Okay, so this video is going to cover how to create a dark system in Game Maker with the use of views and a heads-up display. The majority of this code will work for Game Maker Studio, even though this is being done in Game Maker 8. But there is a slight variation that we'll get to when we come to that point. So we're going to start out here with Object Dark Room. Obviously you can use whatever you want. The key thing to start out with is this depth setting. You're going to want to do that. This is my Metroid engine that we'll be using to cover this tutorial with. So basically you want to set this to a low depth. Obviously with Game Maker, if anybody isn't aware, the lower the number is, it is actually on top. So it's backwards basically. But as you'll see, yeah, your settings are different depending on what game you're doing and how you have it set up. And again, that's something you can tweak on your own for your own, your own uses. But here is our object control. We want to have that number below this number. It can be by 1, it can be by 20, it doesn't matter. And then we also want our control object over our player object, which is set at 0. This is really important. If you set the control object above this code will not work. It won't display properly, and you'll have issues, especially with your heads-up display and such. So, we're going to start out with the create event, and what we want to do simply is these are irrelevant. This is also irrelevant. Yeah, okay. So basically what you want to do is this is your alpha, and this is going to determine basically how dark your room is going to be. This is obviously set to 0.9, so it's fairly dark. It depends on what you're doing. Like, this would be for like a dark room. Like, obviously this is a Metroid game, so we're going for a darker atmosphere here. But if you wanted to say like make a day and night in a video game, like a Legend of Zelda type game, you would obviously want to go with something lower. I would suggest like 0.5. But for this case, this is what we're going to use because this is what fits with this game. Basically, we just want to create this surface here. You can call it night cycle, dark cycle, whatever you want to call it. But basically, what really matters is this surface create room width, room height, and this code here basically just creates literally that, a surface with the size, with the dimensions of your room that you're using it in. Pretty simple, obviously straightforward so far. And let's see here, let's get that back up. Now the draw event is where things get a little bit more complicated. Obviously there's a lot of information here. Some of this is irrelevant, some of this is just for my game particularly. So obviously you want to set the target for the surface to draw, which is what you defined it as in the create event. You want to draw the black layer, and then you want to set this blend mode. And basically what this does is just sets up, the way you want it, the way that, so that it overlays, so that it looks right. Now, here's where the views come into play. There's a lot of tutorials for this, but mostly this is for the sprite glow. And a lot of people don't do this for views, and it'll be really hard if you don't know what you're doing, and your game uses views like this game, because it'll only align with your player when you go to the uppermost corner of the screen, and you won't be able to figure out why. So you can use any glow you want. I'll show the one I'm using in game in a minute or so. But basically, you want to set your sprite with the image index of 0, the sub-image, and then it's got a nice little prompt down here in case you didn't know. It'll tell you all the different functions, which is really nice, like X, Y, all that type of stuff. You can look this up on the website. It's really helpful. But if you know this is down here, you kind of know what you're looking for, and it gives you an idea. So you want to take, with your view, you want to take your object player or whatever you're using, .x, and then minus view underscore X view, and same with Y and Y view. And what this does is it basically makes sure that it calculates out the view so that your glow is always over your player. No matter where you go in the room, it'll follow you basically, and it'll align to your player's X and Y depending on where that is. Basically, these settings define that, and so that pretty much covers that part of it. For the heads-up display part, again, you want to take everything, which is what this is. You're going to want to take everything that's in your heads-up display on your control object for your player and recopy and paste it in here. So I'll show you a little bit of my code here. Let's see. Here we go. So this is the draw event for object control. And basically everywhere that I've drawn a draw sprite, anything that's in, definitions, you want to take all that, you want to copy all that information over. You want to make sure everything's exactly the way it is here. This actually applies to Game Maker 8 and below only. If you're using Studio, you'd want to use the Draw GUI event. Obviously, I don't have that in this version, so I can't really show that off. But for reference, if you're doing this in Studio, this is what I was talking about when I said you're going to want to go and make an alteration. If you're using Studio, it just saves on a lot of space and data and stuff like that. But this basically is the best way that I've found to go about this so far. There might be better ways with this version, but they're not very covered. There's not a whole lot of information out there. And this is something that took me a long time to figure out. So it's basically like, it's a good starting point if this is something you want to do, and until there's better information that comes along, it gets you through. So basically, you've got the draw sprites. Basically, you want to copy these over. You want to take them out of there and put them back in here. You want to do it twice. Because what this does is it redraws, it redraws your sprites. But what will happen is with your HUD, your heads-up display, is that well, when you draw this surface, it draws over everything. It draws over your player. It draws over just about everything, including your control object. Like I said earlier, you can't put the control object above this because it simply won't show up. So what you have to do instead is redraw your sprites, and you want to use the same concept as before. The minus the X view and the Y view if you're using views. Otherwise, just exactly as they were before. And then these extended settings. And this will basically, it'll draw them so that they show through. They won't come up with the darkness overlaid over it. And basically what that does is it puts your heads-up display above everything without putting it above everything. Rather than putting it above, it just sort of makes it transparent through the surface. So obviously, we got everything copied over here, and some of that's not exactly important. But what we do want to cover is down here, these last few lines are, you want to set the blend mode back to normal after all this, and you want to basically take and reset the surface, and redraw it. It's pretty much, basically, it'll go on a loop kind of, it'll do what it needs to do, and you're on your way. Another thing, though, I'll cover really quick is this nice little piece of code here. This is for like an enemy, this is for the gamer in this game, but obviously ignoring the thermal visor functions. This is a nice little code if, say, you wanted to do like the sprite glow that I have for my player object. You could effectively do the same thing here, and instead of just following just this object where it's just drawing over one, the width function would draw over every gamer, so I could put 10 gamers in one room and each one would have a glow. Obviously, it's the same function as this up here, except basically you'd want to use the sprite glow and everything else along with the width event versus anything else. Pretty simple stuff, not too difficult, but in most of the tutorials this is stuff that isn't covered. So we'll take a quick look at what this all looks like in-game and give some real-time examples here. Obviously, most people that do these tutorials, usually they aren't messing with heads-up displays, they aren't messing with views, and that's where this comes into play, is that there's not a whole lot of that out there. So obviously you can see that we have, you know, the glow, that's our glow spray, it follows our object around, and, you know, the darkness, this is what it looks like with the 0.9 alpha. Obviously we can go a lot lighter, we can go completely black. But as you'll also notice that my heads-up display shows through perfectly, with the exception of the map in the upper right-hand corner, which has not been drawn through. And that is what will happen to your heads-up display if you do not decide to put that code in there. It will display just like that map with the alpha overlaying over it, rather than drawing perfectly crystal clear like the rest of the HUD does. So that's pretty much the gist of what's there. Obviously, it follows the player around, does everything you'd expect it to do. Pretty flawless design. And then, like with the object beamer, we switch our visor here. And what that code does is it sets the beamer so that when the thermal function is activated, it not only changes its sprite, but it also shows it through the darkness, making it easier to see. That's what that little snippet of code does, is it makes it so that the beamer can actually be seen through the dark layer, and when it's turned back off, it's overlaid over it again. Obviously anything that's in the glow also shows up, like anything in the background, any enemies, any objects, just about anything else. The only thing it doesn't interfere with is like your heads-up display, which is obviously over top. So pretty versatile code, does everything you'd expect it to, and pretty much fills in any blanks that are left on the internet. So if you're interested in following this development, this is on Metroid Construction, this is on Metroid Database, this is on AM2R Free Forums. I will be uploading some progress video soon on this particular engine. I also have my Legend of Zelda project that is also being worked on. Expect developments from that. And if you'd like to see any more tutorials or anything else based on this engine, or see how anything works in this, by all means, comment on the video, let me know, and expect it out soon.